Welcome to Focus on Health, a show on all matters health, wellness, and lifestyle. I am your host, Joyce Fender, and on this episode, we are continuing the conversation on contraception, especially non-hormonal contraception, alongside Professor Anthony Wanyoro. But before we dive in, take a look at the health updates. Welcome back to Focus on Health, and like we said, we are continuing the conversation on contraception, especially non-hormonal contraception, alongside Professor Anthony Wanyoro. Welcome. So, Dr. kindly take us through non-hormonal contraception.
Thank you. Non-hormonal contraceptive methods can be divided, like all contraceptive methods, into traditional methods and also modern methods. So traditional methods are the methods that have always been used by everybody, and they have been used from time immemorial, and they have no scientific basis. They are usually two. The first one is abstinence, and abstinence is a method that is meant to be 100% protective against pregnancy and also infections. Because we have another one that has been used by couples, which is the withdrawal method. It is not very effective because of various factors that may happen before withdrawal happens. Because we have the modern methods, and the modern methods are methods that modern non-hormonal contraceptive methods. These have a scientific basis, and there are different types of methods. Some that are based on learning about the female ovarian cycle. So we call them the cycle or methods. Then we also have the barrier methods. Barrier methods include the male and the female condoms and things like the diaphragm. Then we have more advanced non-hormonal methods like the intrauterine devices. And finally, we have another major non-hormonal method, which is surgical or voluntary surgical methods, which are usually permanent methods.
Okay. So, Dr. most people actually don't like using contraceptions, and they say they would prefer withdrawal or just tracking their cycle. And when it comes to tracking their cycle, they normally emphasize on checking ovulation. Could you clarify on how to know when someone is ovulating?
Well, there are several signs of ovulation, and when you look at this ovulation, the signs will depend on the hormones that are produced from the ovary. So ovulation starts is driven from the hypothalamus through the pituitary, and then the pituitary hormones will drive the ovary. And then the ovary will produce estrogen in the first phase of the cycle, and then after ovulation, you get progesterone.
Okay.
So estrogen will go into the uterus, which is the head organ, and in the endometrium, it will make it weaken during the first phase, which is the follicular phase. Then after ovulation, progesterone will come in, and we go into the luteal phase. So the endometrium becomes more secretory and more spongy in readiness for implantation to happen. If implantation does not happen, of course, the two hormones will reduce towards the end of the cycle. Then what will happen is that the endometrium lining will be shed off because of various things that will happen, especially vasoconstriction of the blood vessels. So when these hormones are working in tandem, several things will happen. So, but the main thing is that what happens at around the ovulation time. So there is a slight increase in the temperature, which can be measured in various ways to determine whether that increase has happened. Then the other thing that happens is the increase or changes in the cervical mucus. So as away from ovulation, the cervical mucus is usually scanty and it is thickish and tenacious. Then as we near ovulation, then you find the cervical mucus becomes thinner, it increases in amount, and it becomes more slimy and stretchable. All this is to allow the spermatozoa to be able to ascend into the endometrium and to be able to reach the fallopian tube and fertilize the egg. So people can read the cervical mucus. They can also use the temperature to determine when ovulation has happened. Of course, currently there are also apps that are being developed that people can use to determine when ovulation is like.
Okay, so maybe you can go to the barrier methods, and you said there are the condoms, the diaphragms, or the male and female condoms. Would you kindly take us through that?
Well, yes, the barrier methods are quite a number, and the barrier methods, especially the condoms, are the only method that we talk about dual protection, where a woman can be able to be protected against HIV and STIs when they are using these methods. The commonest is the male condom. Of course, we also have the female condom, which are quite good, but they are slightly more expensive, and it's a choice that increases the method mix and, of course, gives the woman self-efficacy. But it is not commonly used in our population because of the cost to the couple. We also have other barriers which are not as good as the condoms. So we have something like diaphragm, we have the cervical cup, cervical sponges, etc. But these are not as effective as the male and the female condom. What is critical is that for the barrier methods to work well, it should be consistently used and it should be used as per the prescription. So correctly used, and it should be used all the time for it to be effective, and it should also contain a spermicide, which in most of the like the male and the female condom, this comes impregnated already. They have the spermicide. But the others, like the diaphragm and the cervical cup, the couple must put the spermicide on the cup so that it works properly.
Okay, so there's also this misconception that condoms, I don't know if it's a misconception, that condoms cannot prevent herpes. Is this true?
Well, they can. What is known is that, of course, the many viruses, especially the human papilloma virus, that is actually the main problem. It is not. The condom is not very good in protecting against infection with the human papilloma virus. So even if a woman is using the condom, they still run the risk of getting the HPV, human papilloma virus, which is, of course, the main cause of cervical cancer. Yes.
And why is this so? Why is it not protective?
I think the main thing is looking at the microscopes and the size of the virus itself. I think that the virus itself is slightly smaller, and it can penetrate the spores that may be there in the condom.
Okay, so you also mentioned during breastfeeding, most mothers are put on progesterone, but we also have this idea that during breastfeeding there is lactation amenorrhea that is protective. So can you tell us a bit about that also?
Thank you. Yes, lactational amenorrhea is another good method, especially for mothers in their first 6 months. It is a non-hormonal method. Uh, it has its own criteria for it to be effective. So the first thing is that the mother must be breastfeeding the baby on demand. So this means that the mother has not introduced any other form of feeding for the baby, and they are with the baby throughout. So every time the baby wants to breastfeed, then the mother is available to breastfeed that.
Okay.
Then the baby must not be more than 6 months. And the third thing is that the mother must not have had her first menstrual period. Because if these three criteria is not fulfilled, then there is a risk of ovulation happening. And when ovulation happens, of course, this means that method is not very effective.
Okay.
The method, when those three criteria are used, the method is very, very effective. It is as effective as the pill. But of course, for many mothers, of course, it means that mother is tied to the baby. The mother cannot probably go back to the office. Okay, so it becomes also a bit cumbersome for many mothers for them. But it has its own advantage because breastfeeding, the baby and the mother will accrue all the benefits of breastfeeding, which are quite many. And these are things that we can talk about when we talk about breastfeeding and its advantages.
Okay, so we also mentioned a bit about the non-hormonal IUD. Could you tell us a bit more about it when it comes to contraception and not just emergency contraception?
Well, we have two types of IUD, like you have rightly said. We have the hormonal and the non-hormonal. They are all considered as IUDs. Even the one that is hormonal is actually considered in the part of IUDs. So IUDs are systems or devices that are inserted into the woman's womb. So the non-hormonal IUD usually contains copper ions. So we have the major one, the commonest is copper T380A, and the 380 is the surface area of copper. With the one that has hormonal, usually you find it has a synthetic progesterone, and it releases the progesterone within the endometrium. So the side effects of in the system are not felt by the woman.
Very interesting first part on non-hormonal contraceptives, and we're taking a short commercial break. Do not touch that dial. We'll be right back, but before then, take a look at the Did You Know segment. Welcome back to Focus on Health, and like we said, we are continuing the conversation on contraception, especially non-hormonal contraception, alongside Professor Anthony Wanyoro. Welcome. So there's also a concern with the insertion of the IUD. People say that it is very painful and there is need for anesthetics. Is this true? Or what do you think about that?
Well, of course, insertion of an IUD or of course, any procedure that involves manipulation of the cervix is painful. And unfortunately, many people have thought that women do not feel pain, but we should give the option of pain relief for all women that we are doing any manipulation. Even a vaginal examination is painful. So, of course, depending on the perception, women should know that there is pain relief, and not relieving the pain should not be allowed, because this limits the number of women who can use the IUD. But when women know that yes, there are methods, either we can inject a local anesthetic in the cervix, or we can spray the cervix with a local anesthetic, okay, or a woman can take some analgesic pain reliever drugs an hour or 30 minutes before insertion. Then you find that the women are able to have a pain-free procedure. Of course, there are some women who will say they don't want to have an injection, and then of course they understand that. And when you are also gentle as a clinician, then you find that they may not perceive any pain.
Okay. So also people say that they normally have their IUDs removed at home. Is this advisable?
Well, not ideally. Insertion of an IUD and removal should be done by healthcare provider. Because when you look at an IUD, when we insert it, IUD has two parts. Mm-hmm. So it has the device itself, and there are small strings. The strings are the ones that are supposed to protrude into the vagina. But since the strings are long, what we normally do is that we cut the strings to about 2 to 3 centimeters. So what remains is 2 to 3 centimeters. When you look at the birth canal, it is long, okay? And for a person to probably put their finger into the birth canal and start looking for those strings, it may be a bit difficult. So in an ideal situation, a speculum should be used so that you can be able to see the string, and then you hook them and remove the IUD.
Okay. So there's also concerns that during intercourse, your partner may feel the IUD. Is this psychological?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I know this is one of the things that worries couples. But when you look at it, the main reason for men partners feeling the IUD in most of the times is because you have the partner has never seen an IUD. Majority of people think, because we talk of a coil, the normal name for intrauterine devices are coils. And you know the coils that we know are usually metals that are very long. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing is that partners do not know where the IUD is inserted. The majority of people think that it is inserted into the vagina. But when you look at the IUD, it's a very small device, and we insert it right into the uterus, where the baby actually stays. Of course, when you look at normal couples who have had children, they also have sex when the woman is pregnant, and the baby is not interfered with, and the partner does not feel the baby. So when a person says that they are feeling at the IUD or they are being hurt by something, then 2 things to do. One, do a speculum on the woman and make sure that the IUD has not descended into the vagina or into the lower part of the uterus and during the cervix. Because in normal circumstances, when the IUD is in the uterus, it should not be felt. So if it is within the uterus and you do a scan and you are told it is properly placed, then have the partner also see and feel the IUD. Mm-hmm. And the best thing is that when you are counseling people on contraceptive method, if possible, it is better for the partner, the male partner, to be there, so that he can also see the IUD and also feel it, so that he does not have a problem later.
Okay. Is there also a relation between use of IUDs and the risk of getting pelvic inflammatory disease?
Well, the IUD itself, whether so let me first talk about the hormonal containing IUD, because we said there are two. So the hormonal containing IUD, we said it contains progesterone. So its mechanism of action is actually just like any progesterone method, weakening of the cervix, thinning of the endometrium. And the good thing, when you have the hormonal containing IUD, there is also less ovulation cycles. So when this happens, especially the weakening of the cervical mucus, then there is less risk of bacteria going into the endometrium and into the pelvis. So there is a reduction in PID. Of course, copper containing IUD does not have that effect because it doesn't change the cervical mucus. But remember, the IUDs are usually sterile, so they are not bacteria itself. Now, the intention of using that IUD may be the one that increases the risk. Because if a person now has a method and they have more sexual partners, then there is a foreign body within the uterus. So if they have an infection, then there is a slight increase in the likelihood of that infection ascending into the uterus. And since there is a foreign body in the uterus, then that infection will recede, and then, of course, it may progress into PID.
Okay. So also in terms of using IUD, what are the side effects?
IUD normally does not have any major side effect because, like we have said, it is non-hormonal, or if it is the hormone, most of the hormonal containing IUD, most of the hormone is concentrated within the uterus itself. But of course, there are few side effects that makes women complain about. The commonest is cramping. Cramping is pain in the uterus, especially immediately after insertion. Of course, we manage this by giving analgesic or pain relievers. Some women have also had painful periods, and before they never used to have. So secondary dysmenorrhea can also happen, but we also give non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. Some women have also noted a slightly heavier than normal menses, and this it has been a reason to remove the copper containing IUD in some women. But when you look at the increase in the menstrual flow, it usually occurs in the first few cycles, and the amount does not really cause a reduction in the hemoglobin levels in these women. So we advise them that this will disappear within 4 to 6 months, and it will not affect your HB. Okay, but of course, if the bleeding is so severe, then of course we will remove the IUD.
Okay, so what are also the factors that may cause this IUD to dislodge or move out of place?
The commonest reason for it to move out is poor placement. When a person has not been trained properly to insert it. The other thing, of course, is if the cramping are so much, because the cramping usually is contraction of the uterus, and this has been seen in women who have never had children, so they get more cramping. So the uterus has never accommodated any baby. Of course, the other reason why it may move down or out is when the woman gets heavy menstrual bleeding, especially when they get clots. The IUD may be lost in a clot, and many people have seen the IUD in their pads. Okay, so those are the three things. Of course, other people have talked about moving upwards, translocating upwards, either into the walls of the uterus or even into the abdomen. But usually this usually happens at insertion, when you don't determine the size of the uterus, and then you go through the endometrium, you go through deep, and then you implant it within the endometrium or even outside, and you perform it within the uterus.
Okay. So we've also seen some people getting pregnant on the IUD. Does it also increase the chances of getting ectopic pregnancy?
Or we say that, or when a woman is on any contraceptive methods, there is tremendous reduction in all risks related to pregnancies, including the risk of an ectopic pregnancy. But if any method fails, because any method may fail, then the risk of an ectopic pregnancy increases. Okay? In some methods, like the IUD, the hormonal contraceptive methods, the surgical methods. It's only the barrier methods that does not increase the risk of an ectopic pregnancy when it fails.
Okay, so that was a very elaborate conversation. Maybe you can give us your parting shots in relation to contraception in general.
Well, contraception are good. They have very few side effects, especially when they are properly used, and they are used when using the medical eligibility criteria. They also have a lot of non-contraceptive benefits because the population, when a country is able to offer women who are sexually active contraceptive methods, then these couples are able to decide on the number of children they want to have, when to have the children, and then to be able to space the children. So socially, you reduce the pressure of an increased population on the few resources that are available within a country, and two, you also improve the health of mothers because they are able to space. You improve their productivity because they are able to go to school, they are able to work. Okay, you also improve the health of the population because you have well-spaced babies, you have good diet in children because they are also fed, breastfed for long. And of course, when you look at it, even things like the environment is also gains when there is proper use of contraceptive methods.
Okay. Very interesting conversation on non-hormonal contraception alongside Professor Anthony Wanyoro. I have been your host, Joy Bofenda, and until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and live with the Healthy You segment.